One. Hello, Omar. How are you?
Hey, doing good.
Good. Uzi, how are you?
Doing well, hyped to be here. A lot to talk about.
Yeah. What you got to talk about?
We
Before
have
that,
the
XAI, how are you?
Well, thanks. How are you?
Good. Good. Uzi, what do we got to talk about?
of course, the 2 hour long interview. Tesla stock today. I saw your question.
Let's
Uh,
start with the 2 hour interview, the X space with Trump. What did you think of it?
I personally wanted Elon to speak more. Saw that more in the second half. I thought they got along. It was a little bit of Elon just saying yeah to stuff, which I didn't love, but they're a good partnership, and I think Elon got the government efficiency commission, so I think that's what he wanted.
Yeah, Omar, Elon's on the government efficiency commission now. Did you see that?
Yeah, well,
The government is already efficient at this point. It's been 12 hours since the space, and the government got an order of magnitude more efficient. XAI, what do you think of the interview?
I was surprised that how reserved Elon was, especially when Trump went on about attaching solar panels to the roof of cars and stuff like that. I'm surprised he didn't correct him.
Yeah, I think people maybe misunderstanding the purpose of the space. The purpose of the space was not any sort of making sure everything that's said is 100% correct and to the letter. It's a political space. It was a political 2 hour bring Trump back to X, get a conversation going. This is very similar to when people tell me in the replies, they're like, "Oh, why do you bring this Tom guy up? Half the stuff he's saying is wrong." Well, that may be the case, but we want to have both bulls and bears on this space. We want to make everyone feel welcome and feel like they have a chance to speak and get whatever they have to say out and get that conversation going. But if you start a conversation with somebody with correcting them every single sentence, then they're not going to come back. So I think it's about moving the ball forward. Trump is now back on X. There's a conversation going that's happening on X Spaces. More than 1 million people listen to it live. Tens of millions of people will have listened to it. Every single media outlet today is talking about yesterday's space. It's a huge, huge achievement, in my opinion. Omar, what did you think of it?
yeah, I agree. The fact that they got up to 1 million concurrent listeners. I was on record the day before, and even Elon even responded saying, "There's no way that Spaces can handle this. No way." And yes, there were obviously some initial hiccups. They said there was a DDoS attack. Some people have said, you know, maybe the servers just sucked. Maybe that wasn't true, but regardless, they did get it started and they handled, I think, more than 1.2 million listeners concurrently at peak. And it's been replayed, I think, 20 million times or more at this point. So certainly an achievement for X Spaces. I think X Spaces is going to be something that is more in the public mind. Maybe we'll have more people attending Spaces. Yeah. As for the content itself, it was a conversation. It's a little bit more of a one-sided conversation. Obviously, Trump is a politician. He is trying to talk a lot, and Elon at the beginning was kind of just saying, yeah, 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 and I kind of wanted to hear more from him. That's kind of my bias as someone who's following Tesla. But I thought they had an interesting conversation. Certainly, it seems to be a friendly conversation. This idea that, Trump hates EVs or EVs aren't going to do well under Trump. I think Musk and Trump actually have a much more similar position than people realize, in that Trump is saying, look, we want to give people a choice. We don't necessarily need a government mandate or tons of subsidies. But, I think you make a great product. And wow, Kamala probably never would have said that about Tesla. I think you make a great product. She probably believes it secretly, but she would never say it. So I think that contrast was really interesting between, you have one candidate who is friendly to Tesla and Elon, and you have another candidate that, uh, you know, put out a press release after and said, the two worst people just had a conversation. To them, Elon is just as bad as Trump. He's a huge enemy, and it started even before he got into politics. When he was a billionaire, when Tesla stock started running up, he started becoming an enemy despite all the things he's done for democratic causes. So it's certainly interesting. I think if you are looking to vote for a candidate that doesn't hate Tesla, then Kamala seems like she's more of a continuation of the Biden stance on Tesla.
Great, thank you. Uzi?
Yeah, I agree about Kamala's position on Elon. I did notice that he did say she's welcome to his space. So that was certainly interesting. I think that was more of a political play. Um, sorry. I think on the other hand, with the space itself, it was absolutely fine once the DDoS attack was resolved. So I think that's what that was. Like, there was no problem jumping around. And I didn't hear the Trump slur or slurring his words.
Tesla Tina, welcome. How are you?
Hey, thank you for having me. How are you doing?
Are you chiming in from your Cybertruck?
Yep, I'm heading down I-5 going south towards Hawthorne right now.
All right, well, enjoy. I'm going to put you on mute because we get a lot of background noise here. But Luce, what did you think of the space yesterday?
It was a really nice space. I really enjoyed it, but I have to be honest, I was not so pleased about Elon Musk not defending Tesla when Trump said that electric vehicles are not for everybody. And also when Elon Musk said there is a lot of ways to improve communications and so on, didn't even mention Tesla in any way. He was more focused on SpaceX, and so I'm a little bit disappointed in that sense.
Just for fun, what did you think?
Yeah, I guess two things. First, more specific, and sorry if there's any background noise. You can let me know if there is. But
No, you're fine.
All right, more specific to this Tesla Live space. I talked last week about how I hope people would encourage Elon to take advantage of the opportunity to spend at least a little time on Tesla. And I'm very happy that Omar posted, I think on Friday or Thursday, to Elon to encourage him to talk about Tesla. And whether or not Elon saw Omar's post, it's just cool that we have this forum where, someone like me with basically no following, can potentially have, some influence and have this opportunity to, talk to people in Elon's circle. So credit to Yaman and, Tesla Live. This space is just a great forum. Just in terms of the talk itself, I'd say I'm somewhat happy Elon mentioned, Tesla EVs during the talk. Certainly, probably could have said more in a couple different opportunities, but I did think he took a reasonable approach saying, we don't need to demonize oil and ice and so on, because, Trump was certainly going pretty strong on all of that. But, he said we should transition and at least did talk up a bit Tesla's sustainability offerings. And, at least he made that some mentions, and who knows, it seems like there could be an opportunity to take Trump in an Austin factory tour or, like you're kind of saying, starting the conversation here.
Yeah, thank you very much. So just a couple of announcements first before we go to Omar. I see a couple of hands. We're going to continue with this topic, but a couple of announcements. One, YouTube Live is now only members only. YouTube Live Chat is now members only. You can sign up through the link at the top of your screens. You can watch this on YouTube through the link at the top of your screens. People like it because you can rewind, pause as the live space happens. So that's no problem. And this space is sponsored by Joa Life. You can use the code TSLA Live for 5% off your purchases. That link is also top of your screens. Thank you very much for all the members, and thank you for Nordic Prospecting, who just contributed about $20. Swedish krona. We just got Omar. We just got a Swedish krona contribution on YouTube. That's the first, I think. Nordic, thank you very much. Omar, go ahead.
Yeah, I think he kind of, struck the right tone. Like you said, this wasn't about calling Trump out about every misinformed anti-EV quote ever. I think Elon wanted to come off as friendly, sympathetic. Obviously, he struck that balance really well. But at the same time, he got to make the case to millions of Trump supporters that here's the deal with, for example, climate change. Okay, well, given a few hundred years, it's going to be uncomfortable to breathe if CO2 concentration goes higher. We're going to run out of fossil fuels eventually, so we may switch over. We, need to switch over eventually. And Trump said, "You make a great product," right? So millions of people who are predisposed to be an EV hater got to hear a friendly conversation where he made a few points. And some of them are likely going to consider a Tesla. That's a pretty invaluable marketing opportunity and sort of the endorsement of Trump. Trump saying, "Hey, I think you make a great product." That is going to be a positive thing for sales, I think. And it's going to cause a lot of people to look at an EV who wouldn't have otherwise. And we sort of talked about how there's a potential for this incredible viral phenomenon as the right starts taking a look at these products. Maybe a few people buy it because Trump said it was a great product. Maybe they like what Elon's saying, and then they show their friends and family. Some of them buy some, then they show their friends and family. That's the kind of, ideally, sort of chain reaction that has to happen. If we're going to get everybody to switch to EV, that means not just marketing at Democrats, but trying to get everybody in the country to switch.
Neural net.
Yeah, so I appreciate that, Omar. And to kind of build on that, I think if you were to look at the lens of that discussion from the lens of a capitalist entrepreneur, I think what we heard was two entrepreneurs, two capitalists talking. Trump may have some weird ideas. Elon put the solar panels on the roof. Okay, he's not an EV guy, right? He might not get it, but what he's thinking about is how do we do this? How do we make money? And I think what we heard evenly from both sides is these guys are open-minded enough that if you can convince them that something is of value, that it's accretive, that you'll make money, that it will benefit society, they're going to go after it. So I think that was the most refreshing point of the conversation for me, is that I felt like I was listening to two capitalists, two entrepreneurs. You can argue about how they got there or what they've done, but regardless, these guys are the deal makers, and I thought it was great. To me, that's where the value is.
Omar, do you think Kamala Harris is going to join Elon in a space?
I would love to see it, but I don't think she's going to do it. She doesn't really seem to be doing many interviews. She is enjoying a pretty strong position right now among the electorate, in part, I think, because people don't really know her that well. And once she starts talking, I think she only kind of uh, erodes her support. So I think her campaign is wisely choosing to uh, really control what she does. I mean, pretty much every media outlet is going to be extremely favorable to her, whatever media outlet she wants to go to, except maybe X. But we haven't seen many interviews with her. So I'd love to see a long form interview with somebody who has the potential to be the next president of the United States and really get into the issues. Like, we don't talk about issues, we don't talk about policies anymore in this country. It's just uh, a lot of nonsense, but not a lot of here are the policies I would actually advocate for if I were president.
Luce.
So obviously, I'm a Trump supporter, but so the problem of giving Kamala the opportunity of a space is that she lies, and basically you just give her the chance of lying more. That's the problem. It's empathy, but at the same time, it's not a good kind of empathy. I would disagree, honestly.
Luce, your sound is coming from far away. So maybe if you could please change that, I would appreciate that. Dallas, what did you think of the space yesterday?
Yeah, I actually thought it was pretty interesting. I think a lot of people focused on the negatives. I mean, the connection issues in the beginning, and his rhetoric and his tenor of how he talks. But I mean, that's how the guy talks. Piers Morgan talked about that. He's like, I've had hundreds of phone calls with this guy. This is how he is. This is not a show. Like or hate the guy, that's how he is. So I actually learned a lot. I enjoyed it.
What did you learn?
What did I learn? I learned that, Trump seems to be pretty pro AI, which is cool. I have never heard him mention the word AI before. He's very proud of the fact that he wants that to be going on in this country because he knows that it's going to be pushed heavily overseas and in China. So trying to keep us competitive on that front, that was cool to hear.
Yeah, a lot of times people, like for example, I saw a tweet and that says something like AI is going to require twice the electricity that Elon should have corrected them and everything. But Elon is trying to get the guy elected. Okay, he's not going to millions of people nitpick everything that comes out of his mouth. And I thought generally, I listened to it this morning. I thought generally it was a good chat. It was productive. It was informative. It was cordial, and it was good to listen to. It gave Elon exposure to Trump's fans, tens of millions of fans, and it gave Trump some exposure to Elon fans, and started bridging that gap. But once, if and when Trump is elected, I think it would be good for Tesla, SpaceX, Neuralink, and every Elon initiative, and really every innovative initiative in the country, in terms of regulations that Dallas just touched on. There is a huge regulatory hurdle that Elon deals with. I think he said millions of regulations across his companies. And Elon brought that up as well yesterday, that he said towards the end that there needs to be an active way of reducing these regulations, because if you're only just introducing new regulations, they just build up and they become very cumbersome. They really slow down progress. Omar, do you have anything to say on that front on regulation?
Yeah, I mean, a lot of people say Elon shouldn't have gotten involved in politics. Elon's companies are so big now that Elon Musk is politics. Okay. So the difference between a president that hates him and refuses to say his name, pretends his companies don't exist, when they're actually having an EV summit, they don't even invite him. They highlight Mary Barra instead, who's now pulled back her EV investments. I mean, he's really obviously looking at this from the perspective of his companies, and he's saying, oh, look, with SpaceX, a lot of the money actually comes from federal government contracts, a lot of the most ambitious stuff. Obviously, they do private launches, they launch private satellites, they even launch private space missions. But, a federal government plan to, for example, build a base on the moon or to prepare for a Mars trip could be huge for SpaceX. And having a friendly person in the White House could help make that happen. In terms of Tesla, we actually don't need subsidies. The subsidies are actually hurting us. They're flooding the market with crappy EVs that people are buying and saying, let me switch back to gas. So we're past that stage now. EVs can win on price without subsidies. What we actually need now is a president who, instead of investigating FSD, is actually going to approve FSD nationwide for autonomous use. And You could say similar things about the other companies. He talked about tunneling, for example. So I think he's really just looking at this and saying, hey, a president who doesn't hate me would probably be good for my companies. And you can say, well, Trump is horrible because X and Y if you're a Democrat. But just from that perspective, I don't think you can really argue with it. So, he's proved to be extremely dangerous, right? We were really in this monoculture where the Democrats had pretty universal support. And, certainly in the media, in our culture, it was very heavily skewed Democratic. And, being a Trump supporter was like eh, being a pariah. You were shunned socially. People would call you names. And when the Democrats started going after Elon, saying, hey, we need to tax him, we need to tax unrealized gains, get money from Tesla. And, he tried to counter it. He said, hey, okay, I'm going to pay taxes. I'm going to sell some stock. They just kept going after him even before he went into politics. And I think he kind of said, okay, well, these guys are going against me. I'm going to go against them. I'm going to get them kicked out of office. And he's been extremely effective. He's intelligent, something you don't see from a lot of the Republicans. He's a much better strategist. He's able to convince people who never would have been convinced. Would I ever have voted for Trump? No, and I'm not going to, but I'm certainly more sympathetic given my love for Tesla. And I
Yeah.
think a lot of people across Silicon Valley feel the same way. So, he's been very dangerous for the Democrats. And, it really kind of goes back to his childhood when kids would beat the crap out of him in school. He said he was beaten almost to the point of death. And he learned punch him back in the face because that kid isn't going to go after you tomorrow after you punched him in the face because he's going to get worried about getting punched. And he carries that philosophy to this day. The Democrats punched him in the face, so he punched him back.
Yeah.
Whether
He's
Trump
still
wins,
punching. He's still
yeah,
punching. Yeah.
and whether Trump wins or Kamala wins, they're still going to remember that punch, right?
Yeah. Yeah. I see we have a couple more hands, a couple more people just joined, a couple requesting to speak as well. Thank you, Ellie, for joining as member to the YouTube channel. And thank you, John Lee, joining as a YouTube member. I'm going to interview Omar on YouTube. So the interview with Chris was a huge success as far as I'm concerned. That 1 hour interview was very informative, packed. I mean, for a first time, it was really, really good. I really, really appreciated Chris's answers. Highly recommend people watch that interview. It also has chapters, so you can skip to whichever chapter interests you the most. Next is going to be Omar on the YouTube channel. And I asked my followers this morning, what should I ask Omar in my interview with him? So this is going to be a long-term focused interview, focused primarily on Optimus and FSD unsupervised. Okay. In this space, we discuss more shorter term topics, quarterly subjects, production deliveries, stock prices, company earnings, what happened that day, etc. And then the YouTube channel, I see the one-on-one interviews. I see it as a channel for longer term outlook of Tesla. So that question is at the top of your screens. What should I ask him? Please reply to that tweet with any question that comes to your mind that you would like to ask Omar, hopefully with a focus on the longer term topics, Optimus, FSD unsupervised, etc. That is at the top of your screens. YouTube members will get a 1 week earlier look at that interview. To join as a YouTube member, that link is also at the top of your screens. NeuroNet.
So one of the things that I think Omar was leading into that I just want to tell this crowd that is something unique is that Trump has a very interesting affect when he's debating. As a white guy growing up in America in the 80s and 90s, I watched a lot of pro wrestling. And I'll tell you right now, Trump has a very WWE pro wrestler approach to a lot of what he says. He'll be hyperbolic. He'll make up funny names about his opponents. He'll just talk crap. You know what I mean? Just like we do in the UFC and in WWE, it's funny, but you really can't take it literally. And one of the odd things I see with Trump is that people take his, wrestler debate persona and they try and literalize it and hang off of every word he says if he actually means it. And it's hilarious to me because I grew up in the culture of professional wrestling and fighting and wrestling and talking crap. And so I think that doesn't translate well. And it's a strength and a weakness for him because it gives him his veracity and his just his kind of fight instinct. But at the same time, it doesn't translate for people who didn't grow up in a culture of basically friendly wrestling. So it's difficult. He's
you.
hyperbolic, just like Elon.
Uzi.
I think a lot of the incentives converge between Elon and Trump. There's only one sticking point. I mean, I wrote a list. I think affordability, immigration, regulation, space, those are sort of policy plays. And then on more of the opposition front, there's the lawfare and then a hate for mainstream media, and they're both pro-social media. And the real difference is just their energy policy. But they seem to be have this goodwill towards one another that seems reconcilable. And in the long term, Tesla might be the one sticking point that Trump is coming along around, especially after that Cybertruck he got from Adem Ross.
55 replies to the tweet at the top so far in the first hour. Lots of questions for Omar. People can't get enough of Omar. And I noticed there's a trend in these replies. People are really wondering about Machine's mom. So we can add Machine's mom to the topic of Optimus FSD unsupervised and Machine's mom. Luce.
So for me, it was very surprising that we haven't heard more about American-made and what Trump will do to shift the manufacturing process in America, and also about importing, exporting from China. I think many things were literally secret and could not be said openly.
Neural net.
I would like to propose that we track the popularity of Machine's mom versus Omar on at least a weekly basis. Thank you.
Machine's mom became a member the other day. I saw that as I was posting. Really cracked me up. There's never been an incident where I see a joke about Machine's mom and don't crack up. It's amazing. Doesn't matter what time of the day, what hour of the night. Just makes me laugh. Alexander, how are you? What did you think of the interview?
I'm good. Yeah, obviously, as a Swede, I can't comment on the political content. But yeah, I think he put his companies, that is Elon, in a really good position for the future. And that was a really smart play, I think.
Are you the Nordic prospecting on YouTube that just tipped 200 Swedish kronas?
No.
No?
You have so many Swedish fans, you wouldn't know.
Really? Oh, that's really cool. Thank you. Brandon.
Hey, I'd like to know what more thing kind of your
Brandon, your connection is really bad. Your connection is really bad. We couldn't hear you. Maybe reply to the space and I can ask Omar. All right. Any other comments on yesterday's space? Otherwise, we're going to move on. Omar, overall, do you think this was a success?
I think it was a big success for the X platform. I think that Trump was losing momentum and it helped move things the other way. But ultimately, not so material compared to other things that are going on in the business.
Let's talk about those other things. Cybertruck production was ramping. Yesterday, we talked about Ford F-150 sales declining ever since the unveil of the Cybertruck in November 2019. Clearly, Cybertruck is impacting F-150 sales. Ram 1500 Classic is being removed from production. Yeah, this is Stellantis entry product, Ram 1500 Classic, a $40,000 product. The Cybertruck is about to enter the $80,000 price offering level. Omar, that's coming soon, right? $80,000. Is that going to be by the end of the year?
I would expect that maybe orders will open up in Q4 and Q1, and deliveries will probably start by 2025. If we got lucky, maybe we could see them in Q4, but right now it's looking more like a 2025 thing.
That is going to be a monumental milestone in the world of electrification.
A lot of
And
people waiting for that.
huge, a lot of people. I mean, Cybertruck had 2 million reservations going into this production ramp. Obviously, price a little higher at this point, but they're going to decline over time. And this is going to be a major step down from $100,000 plus to $80,000 and the federal tax credit. That's going to be huge in the automotive industry. I don't think people really appreciate how much of a milestone that is. Brandon.
Yeah, the starting price would be down, assuming the tax credit stays, by almost $30,000.
I mean, that is incredible. And also, you're going to get FSD by then, too. Do we have any update on that, FSD for Cybertruck?
It should be launching within.
Omar got a call. Brandon, quick.
Well, I mean, this is for Omar, but I mean, is it okay if I go back 2 minutes?
Yeah.
Okay. I just kind of want to know, like, does he think there's any conflict of interest, I guess, between Elon Musk kind of being buddy-buddy with Trump and then also kind of Trump being like mortal enemies with China in certain ways? I just don't want that to affect Tesla in kind of a weird way. Also, I guess since he's not back yet, are you gonna post one of your weekly interviews with Machine's mom on YouTube, or just keep that private?
Those are for members only. If you want to become a member, the link is at the top of our screens. My interviews with Machine's mom. Oh, sorry, that's OnlyFans. Oh, never mind. Neural net.
Yeah, so in regards to the Cybertruck Foundation series and the price dropping to 80K, I kind of jokingly cry about it, but I would expect when the price drops to 80K, so do the features, the wheels, things, right? So, I mean, is it a drop or is it just a different configuration?
Well, it is a non-foundation dual motor, right? So I guess you're right that it's not that much of a price drop when you consider the fact that foundation models come with FSD and upgraded wheels, I think, and a couple other things. So, but still, it makes it a lot more affordable and opens up the order book to
I
those
agree.
who don't want those things. It's going to be a huge step up in terms of
The only
orders.
the only financial thought I had was they don't want to sacrifice margin on that drop, so they're going to sacrifice feature to the extent of margin preservation. That's my thought.
Where do you think Cybertruck production is going to be? Let's see, how many Cybertrucks do you think Tesla will deliver next year?
Somewhere between 250 and 400K.
You think Tesla will deliver 250 to 400K Cybertrucks? Really?
I'm thinking
Next year.
5K a week, 3 to 5K a week. Well, they still. Yeah, let me think. 525. No, yeah, I'm on the low end of it. Yes, I'm on the low end of it. So it's the 250 side. Yeah, when I do yep, it's on the lower end of that scale. Something magic would have to happen, right? They'd have to open the line or have extreme demand.
Right. I think Tesla will I think Tesla will at some point increase production beyond 250K a year. I think.
Yeah.
I think there are people who disagree with me on that though. Omar, are you back?
Yeah, sorry, what was I saying when I got the call?
We were talking about the final comment about the Trump space. Oh, sorry, we were talking about FSD on Cybertruck.
Oh, yeah. Yeah, that should be coming within a week or two. It's scheduled to launch any moment now. We've seen them testing outside Chuck Cook's house. So, looks to be on schedule and definitely before the end of the month, I think we'll have that. So, this is the first time you've had hands-free self-driving on city streets and highways in a truck. So, I think that is a big differentiator, even bigger than electric. A lot of people are just in their trucks all day. So a truck with FSD I mean, even if you don't care for electric, that's going to be a pretty compelling sell.
Yes, I agree. Um, I mean, I can't believe Grant came up yesterday and said we don't yet know how successful Cybertruck is going to be. I mean, how many signs do you need? Every time you see a Cybertruck parked, there are people around it, there are kids running around it. How many times do you see that with a new vehicle? You know, all these
Yeah.
celebrities posting on their social media accounts with, you know, combined hundreds of millions of followers, maybe more than 1 billion followers. Trump, a presidential candidate, is streaming with it on a streamer's channel. I mean, this is a monumental product that changes the automotive industry for good on so many fronts. Electric truck, but also 800-volt electrical architecture, steered by wire, FSD. I mean, so many things going for this product. And the fact that people are still questioning how monumental it's going to be is wild to me. Just like there are still people who think Rivian is going to produce the R2. I think this is going to have to be studied at some point in MBA classes in the future in terms of like psychology or something, crowd psychology. I don't know what's going on. Alexander?
Yeah, I predict when Cybertruck gets released to Europe, Sweden and Norway will have the highest per capita ownership of Cybertruck.
Yeah. In automotive industry news, Nissan lost 90+% of its profits in Q2. Nissan is laying people off, and their market capitalization is $10 billion, less than Rivian right now, which is amazing. So Nissan, I think, is going to be one of the first companies to probably have a tough time here, especially with the Model 3, Model Y prices declining and used prices. I mean, you can get a used Model 3 today for less than $25,000. You can get I'll pin this at the top of your screens. I saw it on Tesla's used inventory page. You can get a Model 3 Performance with FSD for $26,400. Again, it includes FSD. So sometimes I'll get a reply that says, this is just FSD capability. No, this isn't just FSD capability. This car at the top of your screens includes FSD purchased. So you can get this car, Model 3 Performance, for $26,400. And you can see the other two are also great deals as well. Just a few $100 more, but 2021 Model 3 with only 32,000 miles and includes FSD. So all three cars include FSD at the top of your screens. People just don't know. They just don't know that these cars are available. They don't know that they can get FSD through these cars, and you can just transfer it to a new one, a new Model Y with 1.99% financing if you want. It's amazing that these deals are still out there.
Yeah, and you never have to pay for FSD as long as you have the car. No subscription, nothing. And it's a really great car too. Like that Model 3 Performance is so much fun to drive. I used to own one of those myself. So it's really affordable to anybody. There's no excuse not to be driving a robot car. It's like writing your resume on a typewriter when Microsoft Word exists. What are you doing? Go switch today.
Exactly. Vincent in YouTube live chat says, Omar, seeing two new huge tents going up at the Tesla Texas rail yard and the amount of Cybertrucks that are building up in the outbound lots. What do you think of that? What do you make of that? No demand?
I mean, I think we haven't even really scratched the surface of demand for this product. So first of all, it's got all the latest Tesla technology. Stuff like steer-by-wire, rear-wheel steering, power share, where you have power outlets on the car and you can power your home. A lot of this is only on Cybertruck. So if you're a Tesla fan who's just obsessed with the latest from Tesla and you didn't even want a truck, you might end up buying one of these and loving it, which is kind of my story. And really, that some of those things may come to other vehicles right now, but they're Cybertruck exclusive. And that feeling of just like fun, delight, excitement when other people are just so excited to go on a trip in the Cybertruck. Your kids are excited to see it, to go in it. Anytime you go anywhere, like you can. It's like nothing I've ever seen in any product, any iPhone, any car. I've never seen people so magnetically drawn to the product, and you just see people smiling everywhere you go because it's just out of this world. So I think the demand is really much higher than people expect. Certainly, the bears saying, you know, this is a failure of a product, I think are completely off base. And generally, you know, it's not really well understood. Tesla has gotten to where it is today with one product essentially, one product, and that's the Model 3Y platform. Almost all of their entire sales come from the Model 3 and Y, which is really, I consider it to be one product. The Model Y is just like a crossover configuration. It's slightly bigger, but 75% of the parts are the same. So, I call like, how they have the iPhone 15 Pro, iPhone 15 Plus, iPhone 15 Pro Plus, or whatever the hell they call it, Max. It's kind of like that. So, they sell almost 2 million units. It's almost entirely one product. But then you look at the global auto market and you realize, wait a minute, there's actually a lot of different form factors of vehicles. Some people have vans, some people have trucks, some people have large SUVs, some people want a minivan, some people need a semi truck. So there's tons of space in the market that's not being addressed, where if someone needs a van, then a Model Y just, isn't really a consideration if you need like a large capacity cargo van for shipping or something like that. So simply taking Tesla's winning formula, their software, their FSD, and expanding into other segments, they have huge opportunities for growth. Certainly trucking and large truck SUVs in the US market, I think they've got the potential for several 100,000 units in the North American market alone there. The market for a compact Tesla that's lower cost than 3 and Y, specifically aimed at the European and Asian markets, is probably in excess of 2 million units, I think. So, and, a van, the semi, the other vehicles, simply taking the technology they have and expanding the product lineup to include some of these other segments, like we're seeing right now with trucking, they
Yeah.
have a tremendous growth opportunity there. And actually, Elon liked my tweet yesterday after the China numbers came out. Great numbers out of China, by the way. They're just killing it there. And I tweeted, there's a tremendous growth opportunity in China with the new, more affordable models and FSD coming. And Elon liked that. So I think they really do have something very exciting to show us on 1010.
Okay, we'll revisit that 10 in a second. But do you think Tesla will announce a expansion of Cybertruck production anytime soon? So I think the capacity right now is about 2,500 a week, which would be just above Toyota Tundra. So when Tesla ramps to 2,000, 2,500 a week, Cybertruck will exceed Toyota Tundra sales. Thank you very much to who pointed it out on YouTube live chat. Someone just pointed it out. Sorry, Tesla Doctor. Thank you very much for pointing that out. So that would be a huge milestone too. So do you think Tesla will announce an expansion to, let's say, 5,000 or maybe even higher production capacity increase?
Well, according to Troy, the production has been pretty flat for the last month. I think there's a question of how many people can buy $100,000 vehicle at 6% interest in this market, especially knowing that the base models are going to be coming in the future. Um, they're going to have to start producing the non-foundation series to really scale it, I think. And certainly the foundation series, they've had more demand at the 100K price point than I expected or than many others expected. But I think to really take it to the next level on volume, you're going to have to start producing the non-foundation series. And it would probably be helpful for rates to start coming down as well.
Yeah. Okay. 10-10. So you think Tesla will announce something special? In previous spaces, we talked about how it's going to be primarily a hardware unveil and not much of a service. Like you don't expect a robotaxi service for a couple of years, right, Omar?
I think the earliest you could see a robotaxi service realistically would be maybe end of 2025. And, that's being pretty generous.
Yeah. End of 2025 being generous. Okay. I was watching an interview. So in the mornings, I do a lot of research for this space and watch, what people are saying about Tesla, about the day's news, about the economy and everything. So one of the interviews I was watching, I forget this guy's name, some sort of a CIO, Chief Investment Officer at an investment firm. So not a sell side analyst, this guy's a buy side portfolio manager. And he was saying big tech stocks are still positioned well. But if you want to get out of one of them, you should get out of Tesla. Because he says Tesla is still a car company. Sales this year are disappointing. AI play, so Tesla as an AI play is still 6 to 10 years out. What do you say to that? He also said Elon's very volatile. You just never know what he's going to say and what he'll do.
Yeah, I think that, the market is very wrong on Tesla, right? I mean, you're really, it's clear to see here that we're looking at the emergence of what's going to be one of the largest companies on earth. I think it'll probably be the most valuable company on earth. And that means that the stock is going to outperform virtually every other company, Nvidia, Microsoft, you name it, to get to that position. And there is widespread disbelief in what they're doing, right? I mean, the car is now driving around for hours hands free without us touching anything. And people are saying, well, that doesn't mean they can solve self driving. Well, it's already driving around itself. All they need to do is make it make fewer and fewer mistakes, which is what we're seeing happen every day. But even the bulls don't believe it, right? And they're not really asking the right questions. And there seems to be kind of this fatigue. We've been talking about it so long. It's such a hard problem that they're like, oh, okay, whatever. It's never going to be material. We've heard people get excited about progress for so long, and it's never been material. But it is actually going to be material this time. Or, at least I think it is. I could be wrong again. But I think that it's going to be material. And what's going to make it material is A, the fact that it's hands free, and B, the fact that it's now doing zero intervention drives reliably all across the country. And features like, driverless in parking lots, it's only going to make it more and more compelling. So we don't actually need robotaxi. I mean, robotaxi will be hugely valuable when it happens. And mark my words, robotaxi is real. We take Waymo all the time here, and it just works every time. This is not a fantasy. This is actually a real thing that is happening. And it's going to happen with Tesla too. Mark my words. I have seen so much evidence. It's, almost indisputable at this point. So
Well,
I think even, I
people are
think,
disputing, Omar. People are disputing left and right. 99% of analysts out there, they don't think FSD unsupervised or robotaxis are anytime in the near future. And you and I are going to dig into these topics, FSD unsupervised and Optimus. on 101 on YouTube. I'm going to ask you some hardball questions, so be ready. Do your stretches. If you want to add a question to what I'm going to, so I actually do look at these replies, and for Chris, Dirty Tesla, I did select 3 and I posted them on the interview. So you could see on the video the questions asked by whom. So we're going to go through the best questions that relate to FSD unsupervised Optimus. Because, you know, the market doesn't believe FSD or robotaxis are anywhere in the near term, in the next couple of years.
Yeah, I mean, it's more of a this quarter story than this decade story. And even bulls haven't fully grasped yet. They don't see how anything has really changed. But it's going to be impossible to ignore when you have huge jumps in subscriptions, huge jumps in purchases. It's going to meaningfully increase the ASP of the vehicles. And that's going to flow straight to the bottom line. And this will happen as rates are coming down, as conditions in the core auto business are improving. There really is such a gap between even what the bulls believe compared to the reality of the technology that I'm seeing and what I'm hearing from other people who have the software. I mean, this is probably going to be bigger than the auto business itself. Just the value of this software, this AI model they've trained that can move through the world on its own without making a mistake. That alone is probably going to generate more earnings than the entire auto business.
Well,
And people are
everybody,
focused on the auto
yeah.
business.
I mean, they're also very much focused on, like, whenever I say anything about FSD, people are like, when is it coming to hardware 3? When is it coming to hardware 3? People are really anxious about FSD coming to hardware 3. Whenever I post a used Model 3 going for $25,000, $26,000, they're like, that's a hardware 3 car. We don't care. Tesla moved on to hardware 4. What do you say to those people?
Well, you know, most people actually have no idea what hardware 3 and hardware 4 is. It's just like us nerds who know the difference and care about these little details. Most people don't see the software roll out all at once. Like, not even every hardware 4 car has the latest software yet. So it's really neither here nor there to them what the technical details are of why they do or don't have the update. But this model was a hardware 3 model. It's trained on hardware 3 images, and it's designed to fit within the resource profile of hardware 3. If they wanted to make it only run on hardware 4, they could have trained a model that was up to 8 times bigger, according to Elon. But they've trained this to run on hardware 3. Now, as part of that, they have to make some optimizations to help the larger model run and work in a performant way. And that requires separate validation. The validation of these updates alone before they go out to the fleet lasts weeks. And if you have an issue, you kind of have to go back and start over again.
Yeah.
So I think Tesla has a very high bar on what they're letting out, but people's worries that hardware 3 won't be supported are ultimately going to be unfounded. 12.5 is going to come out for hardware 3. I'm very anxious, just like you guys, for it to come out. And when it comes out on hardware 3, it's going to run exactly the same on hardware 3 as it does on hardware 4. Hardware 3 people will see the exact same thing that hardware 4 customers all across the country are experiencing.
Okay. Well, thanks for saying that, because I see in my replies throughout the day the exact opposites from people who clearly don't know the topic as well as you do. So I appreciate you saying that. That hardware 3 will run FSD as well as hardware 4 when this model is pushed to hardware 3 cars. Dallas.
Yeah, and you know, you can see, for example, hardware 3 cars testing outside Chuck Cook's house. So pre-refresh Model 3, those were all hardware 3. And you can see them testing outside Chuck Cook's house. So we've actually seen from testers, we can't share this obviously, get them fired. And we've actually physically seen the cars running hardware 3. It's not just some myth, it actually exists. And they are going to send it out to everybody.
Okay, good. I need to do something for YouTube real quick. Give me 1 second. We need to refresh. For YouTube real quick. Give me 1 second. We need to refresh. Dallas, go ahead.
Yeah, so I've seen a couple people is limiting them or is a bottleneck in the advancements that they could be making if they would just stick with current hardware. I see the value. Personally, I'm not a hardware 3 owner, but I see the value in having the larger fleet be on the software to then gather more data to then make the system better. But what do you say to people who say that that's a problem, that they're spending resources and time on optim?
Well, I mean, this is just the reality of software development.
Dude, Optimus is an order to 2 to 3 orders of magnitude bigger opportunity than robotaxis. You really want them not work on Optimus? That's a ridiculous thing. Who says that? I want names. I want names, addresses, social security numbers.
Yeah. So, I mean, this is just kind of the reality of software development. Would Apple like to say, hey, the latest version of iOS is only going to run on the iPhone 15? That might make software development a little bit simpler for them because they could use some features of the processor that are only available in the latest processor. But in reality, you want to make the OS backwards compatible because that way a lot of people can run it. And that's the reality in the world. You don't get to just have your entire fleet be the same chip. When you have like a small fleet, then you can do that, but in the real world, you're going to have a variety of chipsets out there. And you can't expect those chips to be constantly replaced, right? When we're talking about production of 20 million a year, and there's 80 million of these things out there, and you got a new chip you started production of, you've produced 1,000 units. You're going to make, 80 million of those and have 80 million service center visits around the world? No. You need to actually learn how to develop and push models out for a homogeneous fleet that is going to be running multiple generations of chips. There's going to be hardware 3 and hardware 4 and hardware 5 and hardware 6 and hardware 7. And the goal is to make each car as good as it can possibly be. So right now, there are there are more hardware 3 cars out there than hardware 4 by far. So most people are actually on hardware 3. So if we want to actually deliver the safety benefit to people, have it start preventing crashes for them, we need to make it work on hardware 3 and hardware 4. And the amount of development and testing time it takes to add hardware 3 support is, less than $100,000 compared to the cost of, say, replacing everybody's computer, would be billions of dollars. So it's a no-brainer. Support multiple generations of hardware, make every car as good as it can be. I mean, even the MCU1 cars that were made in October 2016, they're still getting FSD updates. That's this company's commitment to backwards compatibility. And any other company will tell you, hey, you want to use the new version of Super Cruise? Great. Time to buy another Cadillac. That's their backwards compatibility strategy is GFY. Buy another car or we don't care. Tesla's out here supporting cars that are 8 years old, sending them up FSD updates. This is a commitment to backwards compatibility and keeping your old car fresh with new software updates running as well as possible that we have never seen from any other auto company. So, they get so much slack over it because people then come to expect this. They expect to get the updates. Hey, newsflash, your car isn't going to be running the latest generation of chip forever. Okay. Obviously, hardware 4 is better and hardware 5 is better, and your chip isn't going to keep running updates until the end of time. But you're good for probably 8, 10 years. when you buy a Tesla.
Good.
And that goes for hardware 3 or hardware 4.
About Tesla, I saw you had your hand up. What's the latest on the rollouts, and what do you have to say?
Just to echo what Omar was saying, right now there are about 6 or 7 times more hardware 3 cars than hardware 4 cars, according to TSLA, just in their database. So right now, it's really essential for Tesla to support hardware 3, not just so much from the robotaxi standpoint, but just from the FSD releases and supporting the fleet. So I think for now, they will do whatever it takes to support hardware 3. Now, in the future, like a few years in the future, hardware 3 will be a very small percentage of the fleet, because all new cars have hardware 4, and then we'll have hardware 5 and so forth. So the longer, the farther away we go into the future, the less important it is to support the hardware 3 cars. They will be supported as long as they can, but it will not be the top priority. But today it is. So I think Omar is absolutely right. I agree that they will have to support hardware 3 and will do whatever it takes. And I'm pretty sure they can support. And I actually have a theory about why they're about this delay. I don't know if I might be completely wrong on this. It's just my speculation. But I suspect the delay is not so much in the hardware 3, but making the highway stack to work. And so right now they basically have to run 2 stacks on the car, one for highway and another one for city driving. So they have basically, I'm guessing, two models or at least 2 versions running on the same computer. So once they have a single stack, which they were hoping to have with 1.5 release, but I guess it didn't happen. So once they have that worked out and released, then it probably will release some space or power or whatever resources to make it easier to fit on a hardware 3 platform. So maybe hardware 4 is just required so that they have can run both stacks in parallel, or have them loaded at the same time. That's just my speculation. I don't have a proof. I wonder what you guys think.
Yeah, I mean, that makes sense. Omar, what do you think? Tesla has been working on single stack since I think the first time Elon mentioned single stack was 2021.
Well, I mean, they launched the single stack with V11. Then when they went to end, they took the city stack end to end first. So now they're going single stack again. But I think really, Tesla has this enormous monetization opportunity, right? So you've got around 2.4 million cars in the US, about 400,000 already have FSD. So you got about 2 million cars. If all of them went and bought FSD today, then the company could generate $16 billion in earnings overnight. Take that to the whole world, and it's almost $50 billion in earnings worldwide. But the key to actually being able to realize that is, hardware 3 customers have to be able to buy it too. And I think hardware 3 customers are going to crap their pants when they see 12.5. It's really, I think, a similar jump from V11 to V12. And the fact that it's hands-free, plus this huge jump in model performance, and not just in California, but across the country, I think qualifies calling it the biggest FSD update ever.
Do you think FSD 12.5 is going to lead to a wave of FSD purchases at $8,000?
I do. I mean, I think most people will subscribe, but I do think that it's going to be kind of a viral phenomenon and going to lead to a surge in purchases and subscriptions. I would hope that Tesla will send out a free trial.
I mean, I do think that there's going to be an increase in the take rate for subscriptions. But when the subscription rate is $99 a month, I don't know why people would go ahead and buy $8,000 FSD. If it becomes really, really good, and Tesla says we're going to increase it back up to 199, say in a month or two, then I think you might see an increase in FSD purchases. What do you think?
I think purchasing is actually a pretty good deal because you pay them one time, you roll it into their car loan, especially with the low interest car loan, and then you never have to pay for it again. If in 5 years the car is fully autonomous and Tesla's charging whatever, you don't have to worry about it. You own it. You have this rare car that can just drive wherever you want and you don't have to pay a monthly payment to get it to happen. So I think as autonomy expectations rise, as people expect that this car is actually going to become autonomous, which I think you'll start to feel as your car starts doing hours and hours without intervention, it gets easier to imagine it being driverless. And we're going to see this month driverless in parking lots with Smart Summon. It starts to become easier to imagine. And then you say, okay, well, maybe I should just buy this one time rather than paying $107 every month.
Do you think the next direction of FSD subscription price up or down to 199 or 149 or 49?
I say keep it where it is. You definitely don't want to lower it and devalue the product. I don't think you want to make it more expensive right now and discourage people from trying it. So I think they've hit a sweet spot with the pricing. The way that I would go about making it more affordable is to expand the pricing scheme with new sort of lower commitment terms. So rather than 1 month, maybe have like a day pass for $10 or something. And you could make it more affordable that way, maybe. But I like the $99 for a month. I think this is extremely valuable, and we don't want to devalue the product either.
Yeah. We have our favorite oil guy in the listening mode. If he wants to come up and talk to us about yesterday's space, maybe if he has seen it, Tom, what did he think of Elon's comments about fossil fuel industry? Maybe we can get his perspective on yesterday's space as well. In the meantime, Alexander, go ahead.
Yeah, Omar, do you think you will be able to buy FSD when it hits level 4?
Well, an unlimited use license for FSD that allows you unlimited access to FSD and all future updates for the life of the car will probably cost, you know, more than 20,000 to $40,000, I think, at that point. Like you really have to think like what's the value of all the revenue Tesla's losing? So most people are not going to be using unlimited use licenses. They're going to be paying per month or paying a revenue share of their trip or using those pricing schemes because Tesla essentially has ongoing costs in developing and maintaining the software, pushing updates out. So they're going to want to charge people repeatedly. Having something where you're done paying off the car and you're done paying FSD off is kind of attractive, right? You could then have it go pick up your kids, do whatever, and FSD's all paid for.
Dallas, welcome back.
Yeah, sorry, I'm having some connection issues, but I think we're all sorted out.
Okay. Omar, so a lot of people think Blue Cruise is as capable as Tesla Autopilot, and I know it's been improving a little bit, but where does it stand today? Do you know anything about it? Have you tried it recently?
Well, I have tried Blue Cruise. It's available on select Ford models. So unlike Tesla, which builds the hardware into every single car they sell, every single car they sell is capable of FSD. With Ford, it's a special package. You have to get certain F-150s or certain Mustang Mach-E's, and they have a slightly different steering wheel, which kind of flashes at you and stuff. So you have to buy that. Then you have to pay, I think, a yearly fee, which covers Ford maintaining the HD maps for Blue Cruise. So it only works on pre-mapped highways. And if the highway isn't pre-mapped, then you're kind of out of luck. and eventually Ford is going to stop caring about this product, and they're going to stop maintaining it, and it's not going to work anymore. And meanwhile, you're going to have to pay a monthly fee, or a monthly or yearly fee to them forever to keep using it. So basically, if you have a pre-mapped highway, some highways it won't even work on, let alone city streets it of course won't work on. But if you have a pre-mapped highway, you can get on it and you can do hands-free. I believe they may even support automatic lane changes now. I think that came in a more recent update. But it will disengage just because the road is too curvy. So it's even worse than basic autopilot in that regard. And
So
basic
let me ask you. So let's say somebody got an F-150 or whatever model that you have to get for Blue Cruise, and at purchase you decided not to get Blue Cruise. Say in 3 months, can you add it as a software option?
no, it has to come with the Blue Cruise hardware. And they
Okay.
may have started including it more in certain models, but yeah, not every Mustang Mach-E and not every Ford F-150 Lightning is going to support it.
Okay. Well, so like today, Tesla has this untapped potential of 6 million plus cars around the world able to download and start using FSD with one tap. I guess Ford Blue Cruise doesn't have that option. Doesn't matter how good the
No.
software gets in the future, there's no untapped potential in the fleet of existing cars. Tom? Yeah, go
Right.
ahead.
And actually, most of the models don't even support Blue Cruise that Ford
Yeah.
sells.
Yeah. Tom, what do you think about that distinction?
I don't really see self-driving. I know y'all think it's this huge deal, but I don't really see people wanting that as much as y'all see it. That's probably a big difference between you and I. But if y'all are going to have to pay for this technology, it's going to add to the cost of ownership of an EV. I wanted to quickly point out that there are lots of Republicans that own Teslas. And so being a member of the GOP does not make you anti-Tesla. That's hyperbole. Tesla isn't the enemy. Tesla is simply competition. And we all know that. And Elon knows that as well. So to act like Tesla or Rivian or any EV manufacturer is the enemy that must be destroyed is really laughable.
Yeah.
Republicans do
I mean,
believe
I don't think
in free
anyone
markets.
claimed that. I don't think anyone claimed
I
that.
mean,
What did you
Whole
think
Mars
of?
did. Whole Mars did in a tweet. Whole Mars did. That's the reason I
What,
bring it up. So.
oh, I see. What did you think of? What did you think of yesterday's space and specifically Elon's comments around the
It's
fossil fuel?
amazing. Listen, he's a moderate Democrat. Elon Musk has always been a moderate Democrat, and other moderate Democrats are going to see this, and along with the likes of David Sachs and others who have voted Democrat their entire lives, and they're going to take a long, hard look at what's going on here, and maybe they're going to come around to the idea that, hey, you know what? Elon operates off of really simple logic and he's a very down to earth person, in fact. And if he believes logic and reason have been abandoned by the Democrats in pursuit of power, and look, it's playing out in Harris County right now. You have a Harris County DA going after one of their own in a press conference in 15 minutes. I'm about to have to leave to go watch it. But I believe that there's a big disconnect right now in the Democrat Party, and moderate Democrats like Elon Musk, like the district attorney here in Houston, Democrat who was funded by George Soros when she ran. She endorsed Ted Cruz last week. So there's a big problem with the Democrat Party, and you're going to see more moderate Democrats like Elon and others coming over to support Donald Trump. I know this makes leftist heads explode in concert, and they don't like it, and they don't like when 100 million people are listening. I think it's already got 1 billion impressions. The UK government tried to silence him. They tried to say, don't do this. You can't do this. They literally tried to silence this conversation. So when there's nefarious forces in the world that are tied back to the Democrats here in America trying to silence the entire conversation, what side you should be on, the side of freedom of speech and the First Amendment. And you know that they've gone way too far radical to out to the left field when they're trying to shut it all down with a supposed DDoS attack. I mean, look, we all use this app. We all use this app.
Tom, I know you have to go in about 10 minutes, but what do you think of Kamala Harris's rise in the polls against Trump?
I think that's a minor bump. I think everything's within the margin of errors. You say rise in the polls. She's not leading in any polls. And I would expect that bump to happen when you roll out a new candidate who has a pulse and that can, you know, form a complete sentence, whether or not you like it or not. I mean, she's an upgrade over Joe Biden. So a lot of people that were like, oh my God, there's no way I can vote for this guy are like, oh, wow, at least we have somebody that's not a complete moron or doesn't have, you know, the 8th stages of dementia. So there's some relief in that. And of course there's going to be a bump. And I would say that they orchestrated all of this on purpose. In the first debate, CNN threw Joe Biden under the bus. This was all set up to flush Joe Biden out. Everybody's known this in DC for over a year, that Joe Biden wasn't going to be the nominee. The question, was it going to be Kamala? Was it going to be Michelle Obama? And like I said, they're going to end up making her president probably in October. That'll probably be the October surprise. Joe Biden steps aside, they make her president, get the whole honeymoon right over again. You know, the fall in love with our first black president woman. Think Joe Biden, you know, he's the best person ever, and they'll try to ride that in perhaps. But
wow, that's a big prediction. I guess we'll see. I appreciate your political experience, and you studied political science. Is that correct?
What's that?
You studied political science, right?
Yeah, I have a degree in political science from Texas A&M, the liberal arts college. I studied at the Bush School while I was there. I got to talk to Bush 41 numerous times. He was a lecturer there while I was there. It was a very interesting place to get a degree.
Yeah. Well, I mean, I know we have different views on some topics, but it's good to have your experience and expertise in the space. Dallas?
Yeah, Tom, first off, I hope to see you at Kyle Field this year. Looking forward to it. I think you're generous by saying Kamal's not a complete moron. I mean, if you've heard her give a speech, it's tough at best to follow. So I think that's definitely generous. I wanted to touch on the email that she sent out last night after the space. You know, we just touched on how Elon's a moderate Democrat. I agree. I mean, that's self-admitted. He said that. But when the email that she sends out after the space that they call it a complete failure due to technical glitches and stuff, is titled "2 of the worst people you know chat on an app that we won't name." They wouldn't name it. They called it Twitter on purpose because they won't call it X. Why has he become, in their eyes, a radical extremist? You know, damn near a Tea Party member at this point. Why is that their memo?
It's the only way they can go about trying to smear every Republican. If you support Donald Trump, then you can't just be a normal Republican. You can't be a moderate Democrat. You have to be an extremist, MAGA extremist. And so just an attempt to label anyone, even the most moderate Republicans that I know that voted for Ron DeSantis, you know, they're being called MAGA extremists. That's ridiculous on its face. You know, I mean, this is where they go to push their narrative that if you are a Donald Trump supporter, you must be a cult member. And in fact, they spread this nonsense in spaces like quite often. So I'm getting tired of like being called a cult member. I'm sure everybody else I know is being tired of being called a cult member as well. But it's just an attempt to try to label anyone that would support Donald Trump as some, you know, insane person that has been hypnotized by Donald Trump, and that we worship a person, and that we're, you know, this guy didn't legally win the Republican primary. He did. He won it overwhelmingly, you know, and they can't stand for that. They have to try to find a way to malign everyone that's involved in the GOP from head to toe, even if you're not a Republican, even if you're a Democrat like Kim Ogg or you're a Democrat like Elon Musk.
Hey, Omar, question for you. So after yesterday's space, I asked my followers, what do you think of the space? And some people said they wished Elon to push back a bit more on, you know, misinformation about EVs, his comments around fossil fuel industry. How did you feel when Elon was talking? I know you agree with Elon on some of the things about climate change. What are your views, Omar? And then Tom.
Yeah, you know, I really agree with his views, and I think that he has a little bit of a different perspective on this than Democrats. And the fact is, we need fossil fuels. We actually need them to make EVs. So if the price of fossil fuels goes up, as we saw during the pandemic, it also makes it more difficult to produce EVs, to ship them around, to run our business. So we need a strong economy and a strong transition. And I think that's a little bit difficult, a little bit different than some of the policies the Democrats have had that have really, subsidized EVs and raised fuel economy standards, maybe a little excessively to the point where it causes, really pain for the automotive industry, pain for the oil and gas industry. And, we need kind of a balanced policy. We need to make life easy for energy production as it exists today, but also allow for a transition. And I don't think we necessarily want to be throwing massive subsidies at EVs or having a situation with the fuel economy standards that are unnecessarily restrictive. So I think it's a pretty moderate, sensible policy. This is a guy who obviously is advocating for EVs. He owns the biggest maker of EVs in the world. But at the same time, he is an industrialist who understands the reality of these things. And I think their positions actually aren't as far off as you would think.
Tom, what went through your mind as you were listening to Elon talk about his views on the fossil fuel industry yesterday?
Oh, he's right on. It's very common sense. He can't operate SpaceX without fossil fuels. He knows that. He knows that we have to have all kinds of viable energy because we're going to double the amount of electricity intake, in America over the next 10 to 15 years. It's estimated, probably actually way more than that. And so if we're not having nuclear reactors being built, which he, addressed the need for nuclear, which was really good, if we're not doing that, like delivering real baseload power that makes sense, and if we're not reforming regulations so we can build those nuclear power facilities cheaper than the last one, because that's unacceptable. And that's mostly overrun regulations and just, the government being way too heavy handed. It's not necessary to take 12 to 15 years to build a nuclear power plant. That's totally not necessary. Things need to change on that front if we want to be a powerful country producing cheap electricity for manufacturers of anything. Doesn't matter what you want to manufacture. Doesn't matter if I want to make widgets, if I want to make bullets, if I want to make shells to go to war or drones or whatever. I need electricity to do it. We need this as much electricity as cheap as possible. He understands this, and this is where there's a divide in America, and there's this push to say that we can do everything without fossil fuels or nuclear energy for that matter. I would like to see more pushback on Democrats on why we don't have reforms for more nuclear power and why they're so heavy set against nuclear power. I would push the Democrats on that big time. I wouldn't let go because it's just too much common sense. And there's too many Democrats that do want nuclear energy that haven't lost their marbles on it.
Wow. Omar and Tom agreeing on everything. This space is getting boring. If there anyone who disagrees in the listener mode, you're welcome to come up to the speaker and argue the other side. Amazing.
I've got to jet out so I can go to that conference. I'll catch you all again. Thanks for having me.
All right, Tom. See you next time. FSD unsupervised. Go ahead.
I'd just like to go back to the Blue Cruise. I work at a Ford dealership, so I know pretty much everything about it. It really is just a glorified cruise control system. We got the latest and greatest test drives with the people that were designers and everything of it. And when we went out on the highway, he said it's not going to work in this area because the white lines on the highway aren't painted white enough. So that's how terrible of a system it is. And I just wanted to throw that in. It's not even competition to FSD.
Yeah. Well, most of the public, you have to mute yourself when you're not talking. Most of the public doesn't know that. They don't know that. They think these legacy automakers have the same capability that FSD offers to customers.
Yeah, and I think that's the big problem is that we just need a little bit more advertising on FSD.
You said the A word. Omar, what do you think about this A word? Do we need more advertising on FSD?
Well, it might help vehicle sales if more people knew about it. I think a certain amount is going to be viral. Just people showing each other, right? An ad really can't convince you, like actually seeing your friend sit there for half an hour and not touching anything while the car drives you around. When you see that car driving around without a um, driver in the parking lot of the grocery store, when you see that car driving around without a um, driver in the parking lot of the grocery store, and you see some out, advertising may be helpful. I think there is going to be a certain amount of virality to it. You want to be careful in not overselling the capabilities, especially right now while it's in a supervised state. You don't want to say, "Hey, this is going to be great." You kind of have to mention the fact that you have to supervise. It could make mistakes, but there's a lot of different things they could try. I think the referral program. I think sending out more free trials. I think tweeting about it more, maybe advertising, maybe different sort of pricing things they can play with, including it standard in every car. But yeah, it
Yeah.
doesn't really seem to be a major factor that in people picking a vehicle today. But 12.5 hasn't rolled out. Once 12.5 rolls out, I think you're gonna start to see people actually able to experience it for themselves.
Yeah. I just want to say, sorry, you have to stay on mute when you're not talking. This is the rule of the space. So at the top of your screens, I posted a snippet. This is about Grok. Okay, Grok is getting better, I think. These summaries of posts about breaking news used to be kind of off, and that's why they have that at the bottom. This story is a summary of posts and may evolve over time. Grok can make mistakes, verify its outputs. But lately, I've noticed it's getting better and better. This service is available for premium and premium plus subscribers, and it's not advertised, I don't know why, on the premium subscription page. I think it's one of the most useful things about premium plus subscriptions, this summary by Grok, because it really synthesizes and does a really good job, good job, synthesizes hundreds, if not thousands of posts about a breaking news. So instead of having to read all those posts, scroll through your screen, you can just read that paragraph and get a good summary and save a lot of time. So it's something I recommend people look into. And this one at the top particularly is about the FIT 12.5.1.3. When it first came out, this was immediately, like within a few minutes, this was available. JB Capital.
Thank you. With your permission and Omar's permission, I'd like to take 25 words to sell Omar on Trump's vote, if that's okay.
Sure.
Okay. Of course, Elon Musk will save the government somewhere around $400 billion as an efficiency measure within 6 months. And of course, after that, people will question what else great things can Elon do? What is going on with Tesla, SpaceX? And I just think it's obvious that a Trump vote will bring Elon to the forefront like nothing ever before. Thanks.
Omar, are you sold?
I'm not going to vote for Trump. My vote doesn't really matter. I live in California. My state's not going to go for Trump no matter what I vote. So I don't think it really matters. I mean, I think you're seeing Elon really say, okay, the Democrats are going after me. I'm going to go support the other guy. But I'm not sure, Trump cares about Trump. And that's kind of the great thing I like about him is like, he doesn't really have these strong beliefs that he's not going to bend on. He wants to win. And, Elon supports him. Oh, great. Yeah, I like EVs. I like Teslas too. So I think that's kind of the great thing about him, but I'm not sure, he's pretty unpredictable. And he's still a candidate who says, well, EVs aren't great for long-term travel. Um, I don't think either Biden or Trump or, Harris or Trump, I think it was just ridiculous that we got this sort of rematch election of Biden versus Trump. And everybody gets to use their vote how they want. I'm going to vote for Kennedy and hopefully show the political parties that look at the votes that there are people out there who are just saying both of these candidates are not the best we have to offer. And I know that may offend a lot of people who want to vote for Trump. They want to see me support him. But I'm not opposed to a Trump presidency. Um I think it could be good for Tesla. So, we'll see what happens in the general election, but it's not going to come down to my vote.
Echo round. Did you have something to say?
Hi, yes. I have a more specific question. So first of all, I have, let's just say, thousands of Tesla stock. So that's my motivation for the question. But I see that we have a real problem with supercharging in Europe. So this is a multi-billion or even a multi-10 billion problem, which is that the third-party chargers are really quite bad. And I think Elon actually isn't aware of this based on his comments from the investor day. It's like, I much prefer a Tesla supercharger over going to a regular gas station, but I prefer a regular gas station over these third party superchargers. They're actually that bad. So, like, customer service is paramount in a consumer business, and people will have such a bad experience that they might not establish brand loyalty. So, point being, Elon doesn't know about this, and there's people in this call who actually have a lot of reach. So that's why I'm bringing it up, and I can talk more about this, but that's my question or my point.
Okay, thank you. Omar, any thoughts on that?
Yeah, Europe obviously has the CCS standard, so any EV can charge anywhere. I agree, Tesla superchargers are better, but others will figure it out too. I mean, this isn't going to be something that only Tesla can do forever. Others are going to figure out how to do EV charging, and Teslas and others will work there. I would like to see Tesla invest more in superchargers in Europe. I would be supportive of that. But we're kind of in a position right now where the financial strength of the company isn't the greatest. You have this sort of glut of EVs, and pretty much everybody's losing money. Tesla's margins have been contracting. So they're not maybe expanding as aggressively as we'd like in, for example, supercharging in Europe. But as the financial condition of the business improves, as margins start expanding, as you see the new models FSD roll out worldwide and rates come down, then I'm hopeful they'll push much, much faster on supercharger expansion and roll out not just the V3s we've come to love, but 800-volt V4 stations that support much higher power and maybe even support autonomous charging. So there's a ton of work to do building out superchargers, but I think they're trying to take a little breather here and make sure that the company's in a great financial position.
Yeah. Tough times for the automotive industry right now. Tough times. Inventories are rising. By the end of this year, they're expected to be above 3 months. And that is a huge problem for legacy automakers. Tesla has the best in industry days of supply in the teens. I think the last one was 18 days. Second best is Toyota, is between 30 to 40 days. But Ford, GM, they are running into trouble, especially Stellantis. Some of their brands have hundreds of days of supply. So right now you're seeing Rivian, for example, still negative gross margin. After years of operation, they still haven't been able to get to positive gross margin, and they're having to discount their R1T, R1S, heavily incentivize it. Chinese automakers are exporting at ever increasing numbers. They're also heavily advertising their vehicles as well. So globally, there's a glut of automakers right now, automakers and EV models. That's going to take some time to wash through. And that's why Tesla is cutting costs and becoming very lean. possibly harder times ahead. But at the end of that, on the other side of that downturn, that seems necessary, Tesla is going to be best positioned because of the actions taken today. Dallas.
Yeah, so I wanted to touch back on what you guys were talking about earlier. I know you mentioned Ford's Blue Cruise. I have no experience using that. I do have experience, however, on the GMC Super Cruise side. Nowhere near autopilot or FSD, obviously, but is that lumped in the same category for you guys as quality? Like, is it just trash in your minds, like Ford's?
They're about the same, yeah. They both are pre-mapped on highways only. Tesla FSD, which can do hands-free on city streets and highways, and not just some highways, but any highway. There's no other product like it on the market.
Yeah, I think the only other viable solution right now seems to be Waymo. And
Yeah.
yeah.
Yeah, they're very good. I mean, I was just remarking on it last night. I was like, every drive is perfect. It's crazy. And autonomy is really kind of one of those things where you truly can't believe it until you see it. And seeing what they've done has been incredible. Obviously, they're pretty limited. 99.7% of the US only has Tesla FSD as a self-driving solution. But you got to give credit to the team. I made fun of them for years for not releasing anything for 15 years. And now they've made this available to me and it works like a charm. It really shows you the benefits of driverless, and we always prefer taking a car without a driver now.
Emmanuel Puna says on YouTube live chat, I believe FSD will save lives, so I started making FSD videos and I signed up as an Uber Lyft driver. 80% of my riders have no idea about Tesla, EVs, and FSD. What else could we do to get the word out? Omar, what do you think?
Honestly, that's like the best thing you could do is just go give Uber and Lyft rides, which sounds kind of crazy. And I mean, you can just get it and do it like, once a month, once a year, whatever. When you have some free time, you can go in the app and say, okay, hey, I'm in San Francisco going to San Jose. Give me people who are going the same way and just get some butts in seats. Show people the car, show your friends, show your family, show them FSD. People have no idea. Just have them sit in it and say, this is like a iPhone moment where you go from a dumb phone to a smartphone. When you go to a car that gets software updates and drives itself better and better over time. I mean, you could literally save somebody's life by showing this to them. Okay. So, start with your loved ones and then they'll say, oh my God, well, how much does it cost? Show them the website, show them how to order, show them the price. That's the best thing we can do is just tell people, hey, this exists.
Yeah, and Tesla needs people to use FSD. I mean, the more people use it, the more disengagement data drivers submit to Tesla, the faster it's going to get better.
If you do 4 hours of rides on Uber and Lyft a month, so, like roughly an hour a week, then you get free FSD subscription. It'll pay for the FSD subscription.
Wait, what do you mean?
Uber and Lyft pay about $25 an hour. So if you
Oh, I
work
see.
4 hours a month, that'll cover the cost of your FSD subscription.
Yeah.
And of course, anything you do beyond that, you get to keep the cash. So I kind of had this thing too. I actually need to get my car back on Uber and record another video like that. I have the new car, so it's not registered on yet. But I said, hey, wait a minute. I'm going around testing FSD. Why don't I just pick people up? Then at least in addition to getting the money from the YouTube videos, I've also got revenue from the people who are in the car. And they give you random destinations that are real, like real rideshare rides. So it's way better than trying to pick a destination yourself. Um, so it's really interesting from that perspective too. And you have this eye-opening moment where you realize, holy cow, it can actually do my entire rideshare job. All I have to do is sit here and enter the addresses, and it does the entire drive every single time.
All right, thank you for the question, Emmanuel. Emmanuel is a member of the space. YouTube live chat is only available for members of the channel. To join, the link is at the top of your screens. It's a good way to support TSLA Live. Dallas.
Yeah, Omar, I use FSD 12.5.1.3 or whatever it's at now almost daily, and off highway use, I mean, it feels very human and it's really, really great. I took it on the highway today because I had to go somewhere else in town. Maybe it's just because it's gotten so good on 12.5 that you're starting to see the quality difference between the stacks, but I wouldn't call what I experienced today human feeling on the highway. It actually felt very uneasy and tappy and on the brakes and accelerator. Do you experience any of that, or is that just because FSD's gotten so good on 12.5?
Well, here in California, it performs pretty well on the highway, but the highway stack is still the old stack. So the next point update is going to unify the city and highway stacks on end to end. So this is going to be incredible. We're going to see a huge leap in driving performance on the highway, similar to what we saw on the city streets. So that's going to be really fun. But right now, we're still seeing the old stack. And while they've continued to make improvements to the old stack and made it very impressive, they've kind of taken a lot of the learnings from the end to end stack and made the old stack behave more like some of those behaviors that they saw the end to end stack exhibiting. And they've made it very good here in California, but the thing about these sort of heuristics-based systems is they don't tend to generalize very well. So other areas of the country, Texas has very different highways than California. What may make sense in California may make no sense in Texas. So I think really the end to end, when they start shipping that in the next point release or so, that's when we're really going to see a big jump in the highway side that matches the city street side. And I know exactly what you're talking about. You can really tell when you're on the city street, you feel comfortable, you feel relaxed. Then when you're on the highway and you're on that old stack, immediately you kind of feel on edge again, and it's not as comfortable as the end-to-end city street stack is.
Rich?
Hey, thanks for getting me up here. I just wanted to comment quickly on the FSD. So in Chicago, I'm on 12.5.1.3, new Model 3 performance. I've got a 18-year-old son who is a car guy who, we just worked on his car this weekend, lowered it. He goes to car meetups and he always tells me, him and his friends, they don't particularly like EVs. All these car meetups have Chargers, Mustangs, Corvettes, you name them. And I went there the other night just to give him a little shit. And his friends were, kind of taking a look at my car, and they're, giving me some crap. Let's hear it. Let's hear the sound. So I took 4 of his friends for a ride. They're 18, and I posted this in the timeline. And it's, I went fast, and they were like, "Wow, that's pretty quick." I played the radio pretty loud, and they're like, "Wow, that sounds really good." And then I said, name a destination, any destination. They picked Target, which was like 2 miles away. And I just clicked, I used the voice. I said, navigate to Target, and hit FSD, and it just took me. Didn't touch my hand, the steering wheel at all. And they were just completely blown away. They were like 18-year-old kids jumping around going like, this is crazy. I can't believe this. You're not touching the steering wheel. Like, it went down a dark street, like the lines weren't there to turn into the parking lot. And they were just like, oh my gosh, I need this. And I'll say it this way, that when they said that they need this, they're like, we need this when we sit in traffic. In Chicago, traffic's brutal. They hate it. We call it soul sucking. But they still love to drive their cars, as I do. I have the Model 3 Performance. I love driving that thing really fast. But there's times where I'm just completely, on FSD. So anyways, I just, there's a lot of stereotypes of the 18-year-old kids, the car meetups, the I call them the knuckleheads because my son is one of them. But they were blown away. So that's it.
Well, thank you very much for sharing your story. A lot of people were reacting as you were talking. I can see in the audience. That's a great story, Rich. Thank you.
Right.
Zaddy, you may unmute yourself and go ahead.
Thanks, guys. This is the first time I'm speaking in the space, but I hang out here often. So
welcome.
Thank you, guys. You guys do an incredible job just getting the information out. So just a huge fan, but decided to come up and kind of just add my 2 cents. But yeah, you guys were talking about the Blue Cruise. And I'm a recent Model Y buyer within the last month. And so I've been looking for a little while, and then I made the jump, and I couldn't be happier. But I had to go ahead and research the competitors. And I live here in Charlotte, North Carolina. And I thought, let's just run a real world test with this Blue Cruise thing. And so, right there on their website, it says, map your route. So I thought, okay, I picked my car up in Raleigh. And so I thought, okay, let's Blue Cruise from Charlotte, North Carolina to Raleigh. And one of the things that I just found shocking, this was about a week or so ago, was that route, which is about 2 hours, a little bit under, only had about 20% of the entire route mapped and available for Blue Cruise. So that was just horrendous. And the route is about 95% highway. So if that's not just kudos to Elon and the team for actually being able to not only do full highway, but also city and somebody said a dark road and everything else. And that kind of just shows, why Jim Farley has been so nice to Elon and they understand, they have this massive uphill battle and for us that hold Tesla stock and drive the cars, we've been in this thing for years, and a lot of you guys have been in it for years. So just wanted to kind of drop that note. I always thought that was really interesting, and it'll be interesting to watch kind of Ford move forward. But somebody also had a note about I'm still on the 12.3, unfortunately, still waiting for my update to 12.5. But I've been FSDing every single day since I got the car. And it's just an incredible technology. Everybody that sees it just is blown away. Couldn't have more fun FSDing with my girlfriend, and we're dancing to Charlie 360 as loud as the car goes, and people are just looking at us, and they want to be us, and they're just like, wow, that's driving itself, and you just get this general sense of what the car can really do. And I've had a few disengagements, a few instances where it has taken a U-turn where it really shouldn't have, or this or that other thing. But I've also had way more instances where I wasn't paying attention, or I was saying something to somebody in the car, and the car sensors caught it way before I would. And I just thought that was incredible, and just having a lot of fun showing showing people around me. And the last thing I'd say to guys is, I do experience every other day or so, a couple times a week, but it does seem intermittent that the FSD will stutter, but it also does kind of feel like it'll just happen for a day and then not happen for a couple weeks. But I do definitely get in the car and flick it on, and that whole day is just very shaky and rocky. So
yeah,
but other than that,
Omar, I heard that from a couple of the people in the replies today about stuttering. Do you experience the same thing? Every now and then FSD will kind of have some hiccups, or is it just is there anything changing, or is it just a
What do you mean by stuttering?
Zaddy?
Yeah. So it will be a clear day. We'll be driving down the highway. I did the same route the day before, or multiple days before, say going from my home to Charlotte Douglas Airport. And there'll be kind of no cars around. And all of a sudden it just starts kind of pulling up. And you can just kind of feel it, like somebody just said, kind of tapping on the brakes like a little bit, and then it'll just pull off really quick. And I don't know, it almost feels like the car is reaching for data, and it's like 87% instead of the full 100, and it just kind of feels like that. So but it's very intermittent. Like as I said, it might happen 2 or 3 times a month, But somebody did say it is enough, at least here in Charlotte, to sometimes make me flick it off because it is can become dangerous, especially on a
Yeah.
highway and things like that.
Yeah, the older version of the software had a lot of different issues, like the ones you're describing that they fixed in 12.5. So I think you'll be pretty pleased with what they've been working on.
I can't wait. I can't wait. Somebody
Okay,
made
good.
me laugh. Somebody
Thank
made me
you.
laugh. Somebody made me laugh.
Alexander, did you have you had your hand up? Did you have anything to say?
No, yeah, I wanted to add to what Omar was saying, butts in seats are really important. I had a German supplier ride with me a couple of months ago, and he was really critical at first and had like the FUD arguments, like, oh, no range and so on. And I showed him the acceleration and everything, and I got a message this week. He bought a Model Y.
Oh, nice. There you go. All right. Any other questions, comments? Please request to speak. Omar, what else is on your mind? Anything specific? Otherwise, did you hear about Starbucks? Oh, yeah, hold on. About Tesla, go ahead.
Yeah, I just wanted to give you a quick update. There is a new
Can you guys
version
hear about
out.
Tesla?
Can
Yeah, I
you
can
hear
hear
me?
I'll be back.
Go ahead about
Okay,
Tesla.
I just wanted to give everyone an update. There is a new version out in the past hour or two. It's 2024.26.7. This is non-FSD version that is going primarily to other countries or cars in the US that are not, they don't have FSD. So that's just another update for the summer release. And it's already rolling out to about 1.5% of the fleet, of the global fleet. So just to let everyone know, looks like the summer release is pretty much available to 1/3 of all cars in the world, according to Tesla Fi. And that's where we stand. And I'm not sure why they had so many updates, maybe some minor things. It doesn't look like there are new features, but mostly just some fixes and minor updates. As far as the FSD, there are no changes since yesterday morning. So there was a big wave that went out yesterday morning to almost 7% of the fleet in the US and Canada that is now eligible for this update, but so far only hardware 4. So it's all Model S, 3, X, and Y. No Cybertruck yet, but hopefully we'll get that in the near future. That's all.
Okay, good. Thank you very much about Tesla. So do you have a specific estimate? And like, you're very experienced, and I know it's not going to be exact, but what do you think we're going to get FSD on hardware 3 and FSD on Cybertruck? If you can just throw out a couple timelines.
I think it should be coming, maybe this month. I don't have any information beyond what we all know, but as I mentioned earlier, I think it's the delay is not so much in hardware 3, but it's just that highway stack. So once that will be made working, then they will release it for hardware 3. That's my guess. I have nothing to prove it, but that's how it looks to me. So
Okay,
my
thank you very
best
much.
guess is this month, maybe early next month.
Okay. So by the end of Q3, hopefully we'll have both FSD on hardware 3 and FSD on Cybertruck. Great. Omar, any comments on Starbucks' new CEO and chairman? That was a big change that happened today. Starbucks stock is up 22% on the announcement that they fired their CEO and replaced it with Chipotle's CEO. And Chipotle's stock is down 7%. It was down a lot more in the morning. It recovered a little bit.
Yeah, I haven't heard about this. I'll have to look into the story. I am a fan of Chipotle's business. They've had pretty incredible performance if you look at their stock. But yeah, I'm just really thinking about FSD, what some of the speakers said. It really is something where anybody who loves driving needs to have it. If you like driving, you like using your car a lot, you need to have the option to sometimes not drive when you don't want to because you're in your car a lot. And it really is something that just when you see it, you want it. So i- it's a really big difference between hands-free and not hands-free, and it's been so slow to roll out the hands-free. It's been crazy. It's been like months, which actually you predicted, Yaman, which when I read it at first, I said, "Oh no, it's not going to take months." But you were exactly right. They've really taken this to a new level of validation that we've never seen before. They know how big this moment is where they're releasing hands-free self-driving to the masses, and they're going to get it right. And I
Yeah.
think people are going to be blown away. But, I think the day before everything changes, nobody will believe it. They'll just be saying, "Oh, he's been talking about self-driving for years. It's never going to happen." Until suddenly that moment where the update goes out and people just start to believe it. And I think that's about to happen. People kind of see this as just another update, but it's, I think, the biggest update they've ever done. So between that and the international rollout of FSD, those are pretty much the most material events in the company besides 1010.
All right, we're gonna focus on 1010 tomorrow. Mario, go ahead.
Can't wait to get a burrito with my skinny latte very quickly.
I mean, listen, people really like the CEO, Chipotle's CEO, the hedge funds,
Evidently.
investors, because Chipotle, after he became into the CEO position of Chipotle, I think the stock went up 10 times. So Starbucks stock has been sluggish. They had 2 quarters in a row of declining sales, if I remember correctly from the interviews I watched this morning. And the fact that Starbucks' market capitalization went up $25 billion today. I mean, it is a overall update today across the markets, but the fact that it's stuck with $25 billion in one day, a company like Starbucks, is a huge, huge vote of confidence in this decision. And another thing that I thought was interesting was this guy is now the CEO and the chairman overnight of Starbucks. Like he's not a internal hire or anything like that. They poached him from Chipotle and they made him CEO and chairman at the same time. It's going to be interesting to watch what comes of this move. All right, go ahead.
Can I ask a follow up, Yaman? I mean, seriously, where do we think the value is coming from here? Do we think Starbucks is going to go to fresh food, right? Or is it just in the operator is worth, what's the delta there, right? 25 billion on the Starbucks end and how many billion on the Chipotle end on the downside, right? That's amazing.
Yeah, I need to look into this. You have to mute yourself. There you go. I need to look into this a little bit more. This is a massive, massive move on this one decision. So there's a couple of contexts that we have to look into. One, at the end of April, in early May, the stock went down from $89 per share to about $75 per share. So some of it is a recovery from that. Some of it is due to the PPI numbers that came in this morning. Overall stock markets are up about 2% today. Nasdaq is up 2.3%. S&P 500 is up 1.6%. But and then some of it is the guy's success with Chipotle. So I'm also going to look into any sort of short interest in the stock, Starbucks stock. I think it's been a stock that's been really out of favor. So maybe this is just excitement around it as well. But it's a huge unexpected move in a stock like Starbucks. All right. Let's leave it at that. Thank you very much, everybody. Thank you for all the members that joined today. Thank you again for our Swedish contributor that chipped in on YouTube today. I'm going to have a one-on-one interview with Omar hopefully recorded sometime this week. And members of YouTube channel, we're gonna get a 1 week advance look at that interview. It's gonna be about Optimus and FSD unsupervised and anything else that you all asked in the reply to the tweet at the top of your screens. This episode is sponsored by Joa Life. Use code TSLA Live for 5% of your purchases. Thank you, Joa, for sponsoring the Tesla community. Thank you very much, everybody, and I will talk to you tomorrow. Take care.